Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. And I want to focus on guests today, and especially those that are maybe new to podcast guesting. Maybe you're thinking of adding it into your strategy for next year and want to dot your I's, want to cross your T's, and want to get everything prepared before you do it. Or, you know what, if you're already podcast guesting, maybe there are some strategies in place or tools or assets that you can add into your plan to up your game and make sure that you get as much results from your marketing strategy as possible. So today I'm going to give you the ultimate checklist for becoming a sought after podcast guest. I'm going to cover anything from equipment to the assets that you need to get booked, assets for the host, your marketing plan. I just want to make sure that you have everything in place to make it a successful strategy for your business. So, first, of course, when anyone thinks about podcasting, the first thing they think about is what kind of mic should I have? And so, yes, absolutely have a quality microphone. Doesn't have to be expensive. You can, if you're watching the video, you can see this one here. I think it cost maybe $70. The one I had before that was maybe $110. So they're not a huge hit on the bank account. Do not use the microphone that comes with your computer or even the microphone that is built into your webcam. That one just, it doesn't suffice. It doesn't have that rich quality that you want listeners to have when they're listening to the episode. And most of them just plug in USB right into your laptop or your computer, so it's super easy plug and play. Now, there are two types of microphones, and it helps to know the difference. One is dynamic and the other one is a condenser. I always forget their names, but I prefer the dynamic, and that's this one here. The condenser microphone is more for like quiet, soundproof environments, and it can be really rich, but it's very sensitive to ambient noise. So I used to have the Snowball, and it just sat on my desk, but it picked up all of the little noises around. And if you have pets, like I do, it wasn't beneficial. And it just didn't give me that rich sound. The dynamic, though, like this one here, it it just locks you in, right? Like your voice, you have to be quite close to it, but it really zeroes in on your voice. It doesn't pick up all the little tiny other sounds that are in the room or outside of the room. So I find the dynamic way better. Now, many podcasts now are filming in video, like this one. And so most podcasts are being recorded. You're going to be on YouTube. Hopefully, you're repurposing it for shorts and reels. And so you want to make sure that you have a good camera. The camera that comes on your computer or your laptop, it's okay, but it's not super crisp. So the one I'm using is a Logitech. Again, they're not that expensive. Make sure it's an HD 1080p. You want to make sure that it is high quality. Again, super easy, plugs into the USB port, and make sure that it's, at eye level. You don't want it up high, beaming down on you, or down low, looking like you have five chins. You want to make sure that it is, generally speaking, at eye level. And the third, you may not be able to tell, I'm not sure, but I have lights all over the place. I have my normal light that's in my office. I have a one on a stand. It actually came as a two kit, two in a set. And then I have one down here so that it lessens the shadows that are coming up from Amazon. I think it cost me maybe 50, 80 bucks, something like that. But they're on a stand, they're USB, they can be adjustable, and you can change the angles so that you don't have massive shadows on your face. You're not in the dark, you're well lit. And again, you're not worrying about the weather as well. And you don't want to rely on overhead lights. Quite often that gives you like a halo effect on your head, Or if you're sitting beside a window, you don't want light coming in beside you, and you can only see kind of half of your face in the podcast. So to really make an impact and really be professional, you want to make sure that your lighting is effective and everything looks great. The next thing we want to talk about is the space that you're using. Have a designated space that is quiet. I've had guests, and I've even been on shows where the door was open. You could hear the cat meowing. You could hear someone come on the door, or they're in the kitchen. It's super distracting. Think of it from like the host perspective. You're showing up onto their show, so you want to match the quality and professionalism that they have as well. And you want to give 110%. So find a room within your house. I've even seen people do it in closets, like a walk-in closet, but there's a curtain behind them and no one is the wiser. So a room that has minimal echo, you can, if there's rugs, curtains, even foam panels on the walls, it will help dampen that noise so it's not tinny and echoey. I've had people on my show where I can really tell that they are in a blank room, that there's nothing really on the walls. It just has that tinny, echoey, empty sound. So having a quiet designated space that buffers that sound is really important. Whoops, I just smacked my mic. Speaking of mics and electronics, this may seem like an obvious, but you do want to have a stable internet connection, right? It's a virtual recording. You want to make sure that, all your browsers are down, or the kids aren't playing their video games, or you just have upgraded your internet at your space. Ethernet cables are your best friend as well. But again, making sure that everything that you do, the sound, the lighting, your connection, everything is super professional and you're bringing your best to the table. So now we're going to dive into more of the assets that as a guest you should create. You should have heard by now the term a media one sheet. So the one sheet is like your professional podcast resume. It is typically a PDF. Of course, you can have it on your website, and it should include a brief bio, your headshot, your topics and talking points, your social media links in your website, your contact information. Keep it visually appealing, but don't like overload it. Canva is a great tool and they do have some templates. But you want to have one document that is super easy for a host to skim, see what your expertise is, see what your topics are so that they can imagine what it's like to have you on their show and what you would contribute to their listeners. And again, keeping it super professional. So what I always say is that with your media one sheet, you should also have a media web page. This makes it super easy to share where everything is on one web page. Plus, when someone's going to your website and they see your media page, again, whether you call it a media page or press page, it's one page where your bio, downloadable headshots, downloadable one sheet, your interview topics, your interview questions, examples of past episodes or events that you've spoken at for credibility, and instructions on how to book you for their show. It's so much easier when you're pitching or when you're filling out the form to be on a show, just to give them that one link where everything is there. Makes your life easier and it makes their life easier and it looks super professional. And again, when people are going to your website and they, are checking you out and they see that you've got a media page, you get that instant credibility. They envision and see you as a podcast guest and they can imagine you being on their show. So part of those pieces that I mentioned there were headshots. Now, hosts often create, professional graphics for the episodes. And so a blurry selfie just isn't going to cut it for their episode graphics. You don't need to invest in, professional photography that's going to cost you an arm and a leg, but you do want to make sure that it's professional, clear, crisp, with good lighting and an appropriate background. And I always think it's beneficial to have pictures where your arms aren't cut off because it's just easier to place on different images, especially if you drop the background. So making sure that your shoulders do show in the picture versus your arms being cut off. I just find it a little bit trickier. So don't use pictures where you're on vacation, at your family reunion, partying with friends, and you just cut yourself out of it. Take the time to have some decent pictures of yourself. Yeah, so definitely do that. The other item is a polished bio. And I know these are painful to write, believe you me, but a bio gives your host an idea of your expertise, your credentials, and what your area of, expertise is. It just gives you that power to wow them and say yes to booking them on their show. So the bio is also often read right during the show. In that intro, they're included on your show notes, but keep it concise, engaging, and focus on what is relevant to their audience. And for me, I think it's really good to have a long version, a shorter version, but even an elevator pitch that's like a couple of sentences long. That way they fit every scenario. The host can choose which one to share in their show notes, which one to say in the actual episode. And I just find it fits so many more scenarios and possibilities when you have those different options. Like I know for me in my show, when I interview someone, I do read the long bio and I do put it in the show notes, but I don't read it in the episode. I would rather give a concise sentence or two about what they do. And if that guest has that sentence already created, it's one less step for me to have to do. It makes my life so much easier. I love that. Now let's start talking about the actual interview. You want to make sure that you have very specific topics and talking points. And these should be aligned with your expertise, but also tailored to what their audience, cares about. And you want to include actionable insights and strategies to really showcase your expertise. And I think having a few different signature topics is really important because you're going to be on different kinds of shows, right? Or one host may already have had some guests about topic A. And so if you give them topic B and topic C, they're more likely going to book you if they know there are other options. And one topic may appeal to their audience a little bit more than another. Just make sure that those topics are aligned with your offers and your goals. So for me, obviously, I would talk about repurposing content for podcast guests and hosts. I would talk about how to have conversations that convert for podcast guests. And I'm good at emails and I know a lot about emails, but I'm not going to have that as a topic because I don't have a product or a service that relates. So kind of be pointless. You want to make sure it's aligned with your goals. Plus, having a topic and having multiple topics, it helps the host know what you're going to talk about, especially if it's super specific. If I just say, oh, I'm going to be talking about podcast content, that is super vague. If I share, I'm going to share my 4-step podcast leverage system on how to create authority boosting content that, will help you attract more leads and clients. That gives a very detailed description of what I'm going to talk about and how it's going to benefit their listeners. So really think about those signature topics, Make sure they're specific. And then, of course, your answers, you got to think about your answers. You can't just have them ask you and you just wing it. You want to make sure that you have very specific talking points that showcase what you know, your expertise, relate to the audience so that you're picking up on their pain points and relating to them, engaging with them, and that it is seeding your products, your offers, and they see you as the solution. So I actually work with my clients in my podcast Conversations That Convert program to reverse engineer their offers and ensure that they're relevant with their ideal client. I love doing this. And so we've talked about the topics, we've talked about your talking points, but of course, you have to give the host the interview questions. Some people don't actually, but I suggest otherwise. And I do cover this in my podcast Conversations That Convert program as well, because by providing questions, it gives you the opportunity to guide that conversation towards your expertise and your core message. And it ensures that the audience will get value while highlighting your knowledge and your offerings. So, and it'll make, honestly, the host job so much easier, and it ensures that they ask compelling questions that positions you as the expert, and it creates more of a structured conversation that's aligned with your goals. If you simply rely on the host to ask really good questions, likely they're going to go off quote unquote script. They will either ask all the different questions that are on your one sheet, or they will ask their own questions and they might ask like a little bit about this and a little bit about that, maybe about your journey, maybe go off on some tangent. And before you know it, at the end of the conversation, you didn't even have a chance to talk about your expertise, to give those great tips, and for the audience to really see you as that solution. So those interview questions are really crucial. Now, I do want to touch upon pitches. That isn't necessarily my area of expertise. I really like to rely on the podcast booking agencies, and I'm connected to many of them. So if you are looking for any, let me know. And also using podcast matchmaking services. So Podmatch is one of my favorites, and they are great resources and experts out there to be strategic and show you how to get booked on the right shows. But I want to at least say this. Do not copy and paste generic emails. You want to make sure that it is personalized. It shows that you understand the podcast and you understand the audience, and you want to share and pitch your ideas and what content that you can bring to the table that would help their listener. You want to make sure that you're showing value. And in pitches, I think it's really important to give them some audio or video examples of episodes that you've been on in the past. I know when I get pitched, I always check to see what other shows they've been on. And it drives me crazy when they don't include it in the email because I got to search and dig. But I'm not going to say yes to a pitch unless I know they've been on shows. I want to hear and see them in action so that I can kind of get a feel for their personality, get a feel for the energy that they bring to the table. And do they really know their stuff and speak in a confident manner, and they will bring value to my listener. So if you have those clips and examples, definitely include them. Again, I mentioned that media page where you can even embed a couple of videos or podcasts that you've already been on. So that, again, makes it super easy. One-stop shop, right? The other assets you want to have in place, and especially if you're using podcasts to grow your business, is, of course, making sure that your website is up to snuff, professional. It is it shows a clear indication of what it is that you're an expert and who you serve, and free resources and how to connect with you. And of course, the host is also going to look at your social media profiles. I mean, you don't need to be everywhere, but your main platform should be active and aligned with your brand. And hosts, of course, love guests that amplify the show's reach and share the episode once it goes live. So make it easy for the host to find you, to connect with you, and tag you when the show goes live. So make sure that those links are on your one sheet, on your media page, on your website, and even potentially in the pitch or when you fill out those forms to get booked on a show. Make it easy on the host. All right, I got a few more left here. So I'm going to move on to clear call to actions. What is the next step that you want the listener to take after the episode? Is it a free resource? Is it a downloadable guide? Is it subscribing to your newsletter? Is it joining your Facebook group, connecting with you on LinkedIn? You want to be very clear about what you want the listener to do next. Do not give 5 call to actions and 5 things for them to do because they won't do any of them. And you want the call to action to fit the topic. You know, I've made mistakes in the past, believe you me. And I remember doing topics on talking on a show about email marketing. And then my call to action was a social media roadmap. Kind of related, but not really related. So if I'm talking about email marketing on this podcast, and then the resource is not really related, it's not going to compel the listener to want to grab that. So you want it to be connected and also have a clear path to your offers. And so once the show goes live, there are 2 things that you want to do. One is please, please, please have a promotion plan. Do not wing it once the show goes live, because what happens is the email gets buried and you end up doing nothing. And then you've let down the host and you're sabotaging your visibility, your ability to get leads, and your authority. So have a plan and a checklist to ensure that you leverage and repurpose and promote every episode. And of course, I have my podcast leverage system, which I will share in the notes. But I do have a guide and a checklist. You can grab it at leverageyourpodcast.com/guest, and it will help you repurpose so that you can attract more leads and clients. And of course, hosts love when you actively promote episodes. It demonstrates how professional you are, that you're giving, that you care about the relationship that you have with them. And it increases your chance of being invited back, but also referred to other podcasts. And when you do promote and you share those episodes, the reels, and you create those assets, it gives you the chance to expand your reach, positions you as a sought-after expert, it increases your credibility, and it allows you to use the content to push your own lead magnets, your own offers, your own programs. So it benefits you in so many ways. And lastly is track results. If you don't track results that you're getting from podcast guesting, it's just like any other marketing strategy, right? Email marketing, you track your opens, you track your clicks, how many people are bouncing, how many people are unsubscribing. You track those things so that you can improve your results. So track on a spreadsheet what shows you have pitched to be on so that you can follow up, which ones you did get booked on, and when they go live. It is surprising how many people miss that their episode went live. Either the host didn't inform them for some crazy reason, or the email went south and you missed it, and then it just all slips through the crack. So that's a huge missed opportunity. And then if you're using unique links, you can track those links. Check out how many views you have to your landing pages, the opt-ins, how many calls you have, but even other opportunities that it brings. So I do actually have a free training to help you track your podcast guesting results, to help you get more ROI. And I'll have that in my show notes as well. But actually, I've got the link right here for you too, for those that are listening and not watching. So it is smoothbusinesspodcasting.com/guest ROI. And again, I'll have that in the show notes. So there you have it. With these assets and a solid setup, you're ready to pitch yourself confidently and show up with 110% and be the kind of guest that hosts will want to refer to other people. And remember, it's not just about getting booked and showing up and hoping for the best. You want to deliver value, create connections, but you also want to leverage that opportunity and make sure that you're being super intentional and strategic. And then, of course, repurpose it and promote it once it's out. So if you loved today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone that needs to hear this. And until next time, keep showing up, share your story, amplify your message, and make the next year a great year guesting on podcasts to grow your business. See you next week.